Welcome into Studio A for All-American Basketball Edition. Football is done. We closed the chapter last week. We're going all basketball now. I'm Maria Trivelpiece. That's Kyle Youmans. Kyle, ready for ball time, like basketball time.
Yeah, it's time to hoop.
Time to hoop.
Yeah, we've been messing around with that like odd-shaped football.
We love the odd-shaped football,
we do.
though.
I
We
know.
do. But
hoops is just special, though.
Hoop season, baby.
It is special. And kind of like what we talked about with the football season in the American Conference and kind of how we got to that point, we said it at the jump. It was going to be chaos. And what did it end up being?
Chaos.
Guess what it's going to be in basketball?
Chaos.
That is exactly the case.
That's my favorite word.
Yes. And so I think we're going to see a lot of that. And through a couple weeks of conference play, I think we've seen that already. This standings is representative of a conference where it's all wide open.
Yeah.
There's nothing decided yet. We're still so early in this whole process that you've seen some teams emerge. Of course, Tulane's off to a great start. Temple 3-0. That's a bit of a shocker. How about Charlotte at 3-1? That's a team that sticks out to me. But then you look down at the bottom and you say, oh, East Carolina, I thought they would take a step forward this year under Coach Michael Schwartz. Not so far, 0-3. North Texas under a first-year head coach as well, 1-2. And then Tulsa, that's a team that I was really excited about. I'll talk about it a little later on. Under Eric Conkle, they've lost 2 of their first 3 in conference play. So flip everything that we thought about this conference on its head, and let's just throw out the records for a little bit. Let's talk about what we've been seeing so far, and that is what teams emerge and what teams are really contenders in this conference.
And we'll break down some of those teams that we are surprised by, who we think is going to continue to have success.
Yep.
And then we'll also talk about teams that we think might drop off. But what I can guarantee is in about 3 weeks, that's going to look completely different in those standings. And we're going to be saying, oh, we were right or we were wrong. And that's what I'm looking forward to the most.
Well, and remember, we are going to do this show 1 week at a time. Remember, this week, we're going to hit men's basketball. Next week, we're going to hit women's basketball. Every time we do a men's basketball show, it's going to be 1 week later than the original, or 2 weeks later than the original. It could be completely different storylines by the time we record this in 2 weeks. It could be a completely different landscape and standings.
I love it.
Yeah.
Like that's just even more chaotic because when the men's basketball fans tune in, we hope that you're tuning into every show, both the men's and the women's. When
Please
the men's
do.
basketball fans tune in, if they only watch the men's, or if they only watch the women's, when the women's basketball viewers tune in, then they're going to be completely chaotic from episode 1 to 3 to all of them. And I can't wait for that, but I hope you watch all of them. One thing that has been very chaotic, but in a good way, in a positive way, if you're a Tulane Green Wave fan, is the way that team has been playing. Just a really good basketball team if you'll pay attention to what's going on down there in New Orleans.
Knocks away the reverse. Now Asher Woods intercepts the feed in the backcourt. Tulane has it back, and another UTSA turnover. Williams left corner. Hitchin his giddy up down the left baseline. Middleton kicks out right side. Corner 3 faked by Woods. Back out high for Ringgold around a Brumbaugh. Extra pass to the corner. Curtis Williams wide open 3. Knocks it down. Oh, what sensational ball movement for the Tulane Green Wave. And they've got their 13th 3 of the day.
And
Curtis
what a sensational call from the voice of the Green Wave, Corey Gloor, who joins us now here on All-American. Corey, first off, I thought you had a phenomenal call there, but your call was indicative of what Tulane did in that game and what they've been doing to start conference play at 3-0. Ball movement, hitting threes. They hit 19 in that game against UTSA. What has it been like watching the evolution of this team in the early portions of conference play?
Gang, good to be with you again here, talking a little Tulane basketball. It feels like now annually, you guys are it's like, hey, Tulane's winning. Let's talk a little bit here.
Bring them on.
I think I'm not as surprised I think many people might have been, because it has over the years taken Ron Hunter's team some time to settle into what their identity is, and predominantly how they played their defense and his matchup defense. With the roster turnovers year in and year out, it takes a good 4 to 6 weeks, it feels now, for Tulane to really settle in to their defensive identity. And when that gets locked in, that opens things up offensively. It brings confidence into the team. That's what we've started to see now in what's a 5-game winning streak as you and us talk here now. So the fact that the ball movement was as crisp as it was at UTSA, 22 assists in that game, the 19 threes are a program record. That's an offshoot of what the defense has become here over the last couple of outings. That they're allowing 60 points per game during this 5-game winning streak. And so that's been the catalyst for Tulane being where it is now, and that is as we talk right now at the top of this league.
The defense is creating that offense, as you mentioned, Corey. But I think for me, as somebody who's around the program, how have you seen the confidence build? Like, is it there? Are they buying into more what Ron Hunter is selling, especially defensively?
Absolutely. And this is where also having veterans in your backcourt who know this defense comes into major play. When Rowan Brumbaugh and Asher Woods are bought in as defensively as they were last year and are this year, that trickles down to everyone else. The two main new pieces of this team, Scotty Middleton and Curtis Williams, the wings, they're asked to do a lot on this Tulane defense. Some are asked to run up at the point, some are asked to be in the corner, some are asked to switch in the elbows. It can be really complicated for forwards to play this defense, and it took them some time to really establish that. But when you have the backcourt that Tulane does, they act as other guideposts for the other guys to figure out how to play this defense. And Scotty Middleton's had a strong defensive year, took Curtis Williams a couple of weeks, but now that he feels comfortable with it, you're starting to see the true potential of this team unlock.
I like the way you outlined that in the backcourt, but this is starting to turn into a three-man monster with Tulane. You, of course, have the head of the snake, Rowan Brumbaugh, player of the year in the conference in the preseason. One of those guys that just any given night can go off and have a stat sheet filled with production. But then you have Curtis Williams Jr., same kind of thing. 20-plus points on any given night is certainly in the process. And then Asher Woods, who's right around there as well. I mean, how much have those three grown under Ron Hunter, and how much have you seen a step up in their game as the season has gotten underway?
I think what's impressed me most about Rowan Brumbaugh, who's preseason player of the year in the league, he's taken a step forward defensively. And one of the reasons why he wanted to be back with this team this year is that he said the defense here really suits his style of play, his aggressiveness on the defensive end of the floor, and he's been just as important defensively for this team as the 19 points per game that he gives right now on the offensive end. Asher Woods, this is a guy with a good short-term memory. He's had some shaky games this year and shaky first halves in conference play, and then second half he's really exploded. Now, it was an all-around game in San Antonio on Saturday for him, but this is a guy that has played so many minutes across college basketball, and he's not going to let some frustrations linger if things are not going his way in the first half. Curtis Williams, a fascinating one because he's an extremely streaky shooter. He can give you 20 a night. He can also give you 2 a night. And so I think what was key for him in San Antonio when he hit 22 is that he hit a couple of shots early, and that just allowed him to kind of take a breath and settle in. And what he told me after the game was it came down simply to he stayed dialed in defensively during his offensive struggles, and he knew that eventually his shots were going to fall, and they started falling on Saturday. And so those three are becoming a strong offensive trio for this team, but I keep leaning on it, and Ron Hunter will love me for it. Those three defensively are so bought in that the offensive ups and downs that we've seen from them during the course of the year are less severe now because of what they mean 40 minutes of play on the defensive end.
And, of course, with guys like Brumbaugh, Woods, Williams Jr., you can win conference games with three guys playing at the level that they're doing. But in order to really make a run and to really set yourself up for success come March, you got to have a whole team. And you hear about it all the time with NBA players and coaches. They always talk about the others, quote unquote. What else on this team gives you the confidence that Tulane can make a push when postseason play comes around, though there's a lot of time between now and then?
We haven't talked much about the two bigs yet for this team, and what Tyler Ringgold was being tasked to do. He is playing a totally different position from what he was brought here to do, and even what he was heading into the season to do. The loss of Greg Glenn at the end of July completely changed what Tulane was asking Tyler to do. He is trying to be the point forward for this team, and this team offensively runs through their bigs, even though they have arguably the best guard in the conference in Rowan Brumbaugh. But if you can get Tyler Ringgold to distribute from the top, to stretch this floor out on the offensive end, then this thing really hums. And so he's had to learn in a very short amount of time. We're talking about late August to the start of the season, how to run this position. And it's taken some time for him, especially on the offensive end, but now he's getting more comfortable distributing up there, driving from the top. His defense has been pretty strong throughout the course of the year, but what he's had to mold himself into is, I think, an underrated and unsung part of this team right now. And then off the bench, Percy Daniels, true center for this team, defensively is one of the best shot blockers in the league right now. And so he has really taken some major strides to be an interior post presence that this team honestly hasn't had a ton of, a true post presence defensively in a couple of years. And so those two guys round out some of the depth for this team on a team that will run 7, maybe 8 guys during the course of a game. It's never going to be a deep bench for Ron Hunter's team, but what those two have provided kind of flesh out a full 5 when Tulane's on the floor.
You know, Corey, when we started talking to you, you mentioned the way that Ron Hunter's teams take about that 4 to 6 weeks to really understand the defense and play at a high level. And I think one thing that I've noticed is this season, it seems they've done it even a little bit quicker than they did last year. I feel like they peaked a little bit later. So for when you take a look at this team, how can they continue to climb almost past that peak? They came really close in the conference tournament last year, but because they picked up on it, from what I see, a little bit sooner, do you think that helps them or hurts them?
I think it helps them. I mean, they definitely started to pick up the new pieces, started to pick up the defense slightly earlier than maybe last year's new pieces did. And last year, a ton of new pieces were part of this team. This year, not as many. And so it took a little bit less time for the Scotty Middletons, the Curtis Williams, Josiah Moore off the bench has been a nice spark plug for this team, for these guys to really figure out what Coach Hunter is asking them to do in the defensive end of the floor. That the offensive element of this team has been a work in progress. It's frankly been a little bit more complicated to figure out than the defensive side, which is a reverse of what we usually see here. And so I think there's still more to mine out of what this team can do on the offensive side of the floor. The 22 assists a season high, that's a slight aberration from what Tulane has been in terms of moving the ball around. The 3-point shooting was ice cold in December. They finished non-conference 9 for 61 from 3. Now their 3 conference games are hitting 44% from 3. And so that's starting to open up a little bit here. There's still more to get from this offense right now for Tulane. The defense is pretty well established. As long as they keep the 40 minutes of defensive focus up, then this team's going to be in a position to win a ton of close games, and they've won a ton of close games this year.
Okay, so with all that being said, I think part of the intrigue around Tulane right now is the stretch that's coming up, because UAB, North Texas, Florida Atlantic, Charlotte, South Florida, Memphis, all in a row is going to test this team more so than they've been tested over the first 3 games of conference play. Now, they did play Florida Atlantic already, and they did win that game at home. Now they get the return game down in Boca Raton. So going into this stretch, what do you want to see from the Green Wave to keep that momentum rolling and to continue to show that they are a legitimate front runner in the American?
I think what you guys were kind of opening the show with leans in here, in that you got to hold serve at home, period. Yes. Like, I mean, just with what the conference tournament will now look like and how it's structured, you can't just lose grasp of a home game anymore, with the importance of the seeding in this league now and what that means come Birmingham in March. And then you're looking at the road games coming up, and you hit on a couple of them there, and Florida Atlantic and that return trip, and they just don't lose in that building. And Charlotte's looking a little bit better than I think people thought they might at this stage in the year. And so, not to look past these 2 home games, these are 2 totally new outfits that Tulane's about to see in UAB and North Texas. But those 2 road games, if you can garner a split out of that week, then I think you feel really good about where Tulane is moving towards February. I think what Tulane's going to lean on here as the 6 games that you mentioned really come into the forefront is that they played 3 different styles of teams here in the American, and you can argue about the effectiveness of how, the quality of some of these teams, but they've made all 3 of them, that's East Carolina, Florida Atlantic, and UTSA, play at their pace, play at a slower half-court style pace. 2 teams that want to get out and run, that Tulane completely silenced from doing that. And so the Green Wave has done a great job of making teams slow down. And so that, I think, is something they're going to certainly want to put into place and against a UAB team that wants to run coming up on Wednesday night. And that's something that I feel like they can hinge on a little bit, where they've made teams adapt to them. They have not had to adapt to someone else.
He's the busiest man in New Orleans, fresh off a college football playoff appearance, now straight into basketball season. Soon we're going to be at Turchin Stadium calling Tulane baseball again. He's Corey Gloor of the Tulane Green Wave Sports Network. Thanks again, Corey, for joining us here on All-American. Good luck, and get some rest when you get an opportunity. Do us a favor, okay?
Rest is for the weak. Thanks, guys, for having me. Roll Wave.
I love it. Thanks, Corey.
Corey Gloor, the voice of the Green Wave, always giving us all the inside scoop on Tulane men's basketball, and it's needed now because they're pretty good this year.
Yeah, I kind of like what we said in last week's show. If you're a fan of the Tulane Green Wave athletic department as a whole, rally around what that basketball team is doing right now, just like you did with the football team in their quest to the college football playoff, which Corey did a great job of documenting and calling as that went on as well. I love following his social medias. He's one of the best play-by-play social media followers. Don't tell him I said this in person, all right?
Like, yeah, we can't pump his ego too much.
Don't tell him. But he's one of the best social media follows you'll ever have for a voice of a specific program, and he does a great job on and off the mic with the Tulane Green Wave. So thanks for stopping by, Corey. Appreciate you as always. Time to get to some of these other teams across the board when it comes to the American, and it starts with the Philadelphia-based Temple Owls. 7 straight wins. Coach Adam Fisher and company have things rolling in the right direction to start conference play, and really at the end of non-conference play, that momentum has been carried over.
Well, I think that Adam Fisher is a good coach, and I say that because we've seen Temple start off hot, not only this season, but last season as well. Early in conference play, they were doing some big things. They had that win over Memphis, and I think that he's finally getting in a groove, right? He's been at Temple now for a few years. He has the guys that he wants, and he said something on Media Day that really stood out to me, and I think it's a big reason why the Owls are having so much success. He made a differentiating statement between culture and standard, and that's how he wants to lead his program this year. He said culture is kind of what we did, before college athletics was as it is right now. It's something that you establish over multiple years and you create a culture. They don't have time to do that anymore. He instead wants to initiate a standard in college basketball, and the standard is something that you can do in a couple months. It's what his coaching staff sets, and the players meet it. I think they're meeting that standard right now, and that's why they're successful.
Well, I think part of that is you have some returners from last year's squad that won 17 games. That was a top 7 seed in the tournament, and that did have some promise, especially early in the year. I remember we were having conversations about Temple as an overachiever and as a team that was really going to challenge. Then they get placed 9th out of the 13 teams in the preseason poll again this year, and I think they took that a little personally. I think they looked at that and said, we've got 4 returners from last year, including some significant contributors. They revamped their roster a little bit, 3 freshmen, 8 transfers overall, and now they've got some extra talent. This team's top 6 in the American right now when it comes to points per game. They're top 4 when it comes to opponents' points per game, and they're one of just 3 schools that are top 6 in both categories. That tells me that they are for real and that they're taking care of business, and that's not just in the American. That's across the board through their non-conference slate as well. You even go back to last year. They were dead last in the conference in 2025 with points allowed per game. 77.7 points allowed per game last year. They're top 5 in that category now. They've revamped and restructured the way that they play. And like you said, it's not just about culture now. It's about technique. It's about identity. And they're starting to build that identity across the board. I really like what they've done up to this point. Now, kind of like what I said with Tulane a minute ago, they may have benefited from having a lighter schedule to start. Charlotte, who we'll talk about in a little bit, as kind of a surprise. They took them down in a one possession ball game. They beat UTSA, and then they beat East Carolina. Those 3 teams, not necessarily the upper echelon of the American Conference, but they've got Memphis on the road tonight. They've got a couple games coming up over the next few weeks that are going to challenge them, including Florida Atlantic, including South Florida, and then they'll have Tulane, North Texas, UAB, Wichita State, and then Florida Atlantic again in the span of 3 weeks. Yep. So it's going to get tough for Temple at some point in time, but in order to keep their momentum going, you got to keep doing what you were doing into this stretch, and that's play better defense and continue continue to take advantage of some of those returners that you know what they bring to the table.
Well, I think you make a great point because they've seen success early in the season. I think this week in particular will be a big test for Temple where we'll see what kind of program they are. And I think that they have the capability to rise to that challenge. You talk about some of those returners. Aiden Tobiason is having a great season, just doing a really good job, not only on the court, but his leadership skills. He was another one that was at media day. You could just tell by the way that he carried himself. He has a little bit more confidence going into this season. And then some of those newcomers.
Can I add to Tobiason real quickly? Just because they have 4 players that are averaging in double figures. So it's not just Tobiason, but there's an impact that he's making that you didn't necessarily anticipate last year. He was a good freshman player. He was in the starting lineup quite a bit. He was in and out, but he's taken a huge step forward, and it's helping his team win games. He averages 3.2 points per game last year and a rebound and a half. That's it. That's all he had last year in that debut season with Temple. Now you turn around and you look at what he's doing. He's second on the team in scoring. He's averaging 3 rebounds, 2 assists per game. He's providing some steal capability. He's a solid on-ball defender in the backcourt. I think he's just an all-around player. I see Ford at the top. Darian Ford has had a great year so far, and I like what he's added to the table. But when you get development and step up in this day and age of college basketball, you talk about get old, stay old. A lot of times that's from experience at other programs. But when you can develop and see steps forward within your own program, like Tobiason has done, that makes things a world of difference across the board for Coach Fisher.
Because you're not only developing as an individual player, right? You're developing within the system at Temple. And I think that's something that Coach Fisher was talking about. Okay, we might not have somebody for 3 or 4 years, but how can we develop them to the standard that we want in the amount of time that we have? And it's cool to see somebody stay for another year, get a little bit better, and have that production. And I think to that point, you mentioned some of those other top scorers. You saw the graphic right there. It's a very balanced attack from Temple because you have multiple people scoring in double figures. And then also we talked about the defense. In addition to that, back on the offensive side of things, they're taking care of the basketball. And so when you do those little things, it sounds so cliche. It's very coach speak, but taking care of the basketball, playing good defense, and sharing the basketball makes you kind of tough to beat.
Oh, absolutely. Top 5 in turnover margin, number 2 in assist. That tells me that you're sharing the basketball. It means that the ball has life when it's on in your end of the floor. And a lot of times those assists come from a steal, the turnovers that you're forcing, and then pushing the basketball in transition. I've seen that all season long from Temple. They're a disciplined team. Like you said, they take care of the basketball. They turn other people over, and they share it on their offensive end. A lot of good signs pointing in the right direction for Temple and the Owls. From one Owls to the next type of Owls. How about the Florida Atlantic Owls and what FAU has done to start this season? Even get a little
like a high
petty
school
on
gym.
social
I think
media.
it's easier to go into a smaller gym because you don't have any distractions.
A little clip from Penny Hardaway saying they play in a high school gym. Well, they lost in a high school gym, apparently, because the Owls got it done over Memphis last week, and their offense has been the team that's led the way.
We'll talk about the offense in just a moment, but I love the pettiness. And Florida Atlantic and their social team just went hard. There was another video I saw on Instagram where they took one of Penny Hardaway's old commercials and used that as well. So we always give credit to the social media teams where credit is due.
Yep.
Shout out Florida Atlantic.
They work way too hard not to get the credit. Those social media teams work long hours.
Way more than I can even comprehend. The creativity, the effort, the little bit of pettiness. We love that here at the American. And I think that it's one of my favorite
Petty
things.
towards Penny?
Petty towards Penny. And the thing is, like, watching that clip, I was like, you could see that he wasn't trying to be like mean or intentional when he was calling it a high school gym.
Talking about the gym.
He was just making a statement, but you could take.
That team's been to the Final Four in the last 4 years. Get them a bigger gym, in my opinion. I get it. And I know there's probably some Florida Atlantic admin that are out there like, we've tried. I get it. I know it's a long process. But you went to a Final Four, and you got a really good basketball coach in there right now.
Coach.
Said it last year. I was all aboard the John Jacobs train. I love the pedigree he brings. I love the coaching tree he comes from, that Scott Drew coaching tree. There are a lot of guys that have had a ton of success from the Scott Drew coaching tree. Couple in this conference that have now moved on and taken over bigger jobs. Well, John Jacobs says, I'm going to be able to bring that same kind of pedigree to Florida Atlantic. And in year 2, It is being established, and we are watching it unfold in front of our very eyes. And that's why they're 11-6 going into the Wednesday matchups. That's why they're 3-1 in the American so far this season, and why, despite they were picked to finish in the middle of the preseason poll, I wouldn't be shocked if this is a team we're talking about as one of the best in the conference when it's all said and done.
Well, when you talk about Coach Jacobs, he just does a really good job of, you talk about that development, when he can keep players and develop them in multiple years, but how about when he takes guys in their first year and creates them to be good basketball players? I think what you're seeing right now with Florida Atlantic is this is a group of guys that are getting really comfortable with each other, and they're tacking on wins that are giving them confidence, and you see that confidence building. They beat a Memphis team who won the American last year, who was ranked high in the, not only in the conference, in the country last season. And I think when you have wins like that, it shows your basketball team, hey, you know all that stuff I've been telling you as a coach and a coaching staff, it's kind of like it works, right? Mm-hmm. So let's buy into it a little bit more. And so I think that when you can bring a coach like Coach Jacobs to a program that's already been to a Final Four, you get them playing pretty well, I think that it can only trend upwards from here for the Owls.
Plus, it's an attractive place to play. Who wouldn't want to go play hoops and play basketball in paradise? And I know that the gym has its own little lore to it itself, but now that they've shown that they can reach the mountain top, and a big credit to Dusty May, who's now the head coach of Michigan, I think Jacobs is the right guy to continue that momentum, and we're seeing it in year two, mostly because they have athleticism. They have length. My goodness. It feels like everybody on that roster is over 6'3", and even to just illustrate that a little bit, how about let's go through the roster?
All right,
can we go through the roster a little bit here?
Let's do it.
Okay, how about this? You got Mr. Devin Williams, 6'10". He's a forward. That's a normal size. You got Isaiah Elohim, sophomore guard, 6'5" as a sophomore guard. Amar Amku, he is a 6'7" guard. He is. Then you go down the list. You see Johan Sissoko, 6'5" freshman guard. Their guards are taller than most teams' forwards. Take a look at some of the teams that they're going to face down the stretch. North Texas is a team that does not have a lot of size this year. Their tallest player is 6'8" on their roster, 6'8" to 6'10", I guess.
You got a guard at 6'7"
right
for
in between.
The Owls.
You've got guards at 6'7" and 6'8" for Florida Atlantic. So much length to work with, and John Jacobs knows how to get the technique out of those guys. He knows how to push them in the right direction. Now, they've also have one of the best backcourts in the league.
Agreed.
Maybe outside of Tulane, they might be the best backcourt in the league. The stats this season are showing that you've got guys like Carlyle and Vinterpool that are significant contributors this season across the board for FAU, where in the past they haven't necessarily been that. They're taking steps forward. They're moving in the right direction. They didn't play well against Tulane in their one loss, and that was a close game despite Vanderpool being held to 9 points. And Carlyle, not much better on 10 points of 4 of 6 shooting on the road in a one-possession loss in New Orleans. I think this Florida Atlantic team is just as good as anybody else in the conference, especially when these two play up to their caliber.
And I think you see them playing even better. You talk about that loss to Tulane, and that was the one little factor that stopped them from beating the Green Wave. But talking about development and people staying places, how about Devin Vanderpool? This is his third year at Florida Atlantic, redshirted as a freshman. Last year he came off the bench, and now you see the success that he's having. So we talk so much about the transfer portal and people going everywhere after 1 year. These are guys that have stayed. Now, obviously, Carlisle's a transfer, but Vanderpool has stayed, and he's developed, and he's having an impact under a coach like John Jacobs, who can develop players and recruit really tall young student athletes to help him with that as well.
Well, Carlyle is the perfect really this duo is the perfect example of how you build the right way in college basketball, because there is so much kerfuffle. There is so much back and forth and wild west when it comes to the transfer portal. But you've got a guy like Carlyle who had success at Stanford as a freshman, played in 23 games, averaged 11.5 points. He had 2.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, was a solid player for the Cardinal. Then he moves on. He says, you know what, I'm going to hit the portal again. I'm going to go to Indiana and try my thing at Big Ten basketball. Barely played. Started 6 games, but played in 25, averaged 4 points a game over 16 minutes on average with the Hoosiers. So then he turns around and he says, you know what? I want to do what I did at Stanford. I want to go to a destination. I want to be the guy, and I want to have a chance to win conference championships and go back to the big dance. Well, that's what he did at FAU. That's what he's doing at FAU. 15 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He's Mr. Everything for them, but he's playing next to another Mr. Everything in Vanderpool. So I really think it's a great duo, but you have the development in-house, matching it up with some transfer portal talent, and then a good coaching staff that brings it all together. Florida Atlantic is, mark my words, let's mark this today.
All right,
on
lock it in
January 14th of 2026. Florida Atlantic is going to be a problem come March.
I'm agreeing with you on this one. 100% agreeing with you, especially with the way they played against Memphis. Let's talk about another team, though, that's a little bit surprising this year. 3 wins in conference play.
I don't think I would have said this team was going to make noise in March, but maybe they will.
But maybe they will with the way they've been playing Charlotte. 3 wins already in conference play, and some gritty wins, too, some overtime victories. I like what the 49ers are putting on tape right now.
Yeah, this is the type of Charlotte basketball that the American Conference anticipated when they took a pretty significant contender. Now, they weren't a champion of Conference USA, and going all the way back to, I think, 2005 was the last time that they were in the tournament and won the tournament themselves. But they were always a part of the conversation in Conference USA, won a CBI championship their last year there. Then they jumped to the American and didn't have the success you would anticipate. Well, now you're starting to see it. Give credit to Aaron Fern. He's now in year 3. Got to give some time for some of these guys to establish a program and to start winning some things. Well, now they are winning some things. They had just 11 wins overall last year. They've got 9 this year. They're already winning 3 games out of their first 4 in the American. This isn't even a case of, they've played an easy schedule. This is, they've played some really good basketball up to this point in time. And that's what's most impressive to me, because they take down Wichita State, who we've seen already get some big wins. They beat Rice in a 1-point game. They destroyed UTSA, dominated that game all the way through. And then Temple is another team that we just talked about as a team that's won 7 straight. They only won by 3 against this Charlotte team. Don't count out the 49ers. They got to go in the right direction there in Charlotte.
And I think if you take a look at their schedule coming up, too, it allows them to continue to build momentum. They have that Tulsa team next that we started off really hot. We're going to talk about them in a bit, and then has lost the last few games. And then they have an East Carolina team who's been struggling a little bit. So they can continue to build on this momentum. And I think that's the key for this team. I think the difference that I'm seeing from last year to this year, I mean, obviously players are different, but that's with every team. I think that Charlotte this season is finishing games. They're finding a way to actually come together and find ways to win basketball games. And I know that sounds so simple, but I think that was where the disconnect was. They'd be in games and then they'd pitter-patter and fall off. And you could just tell that maybe there wasn't that culture piece that we talk about all the time there. And I think this season they're finding ways like that win against Wichita State in overtime to make a big play, to come out on top. And I think if they can continue that and build up this momentum, they put themselves in a good spot. It won't be easy. I think Tulsa's looking for a win, but I like where they are right now.
I think, man, this is why I like working with you, Maria. You bring up great points. You go back, I had not looked at this until you just brought it up, and I'm looking at it in real time right now. Last year, let's just start counting the losses going backwards, forwards. Florida Atlantic in the tournament, 5-point loss. They had won against Rice in the tournament, so you had that in your favor. Then you have a one possession loss at East Carolina. You win in overtime against Temple last year. You win against Rice last year. You had a single-digit loss to Wichita State. You had a 2 overtime loss to Temple. You had a single-digit loss to a South Florida team that we didn't really know what they were at that point in time. Single-digit loss to a number 18 Memphis team. Maybe we were just over, and not we as a conference, but I'm talking about it in general, basketball fans, we're overlooking how close Charlotte actually was to being significant. I think that's a phenomenal point. They didn't finish those games last year, and they've already finished 2 that we can think of this year in what they've already done in terms of their wins. Now, you got to give credit to in-house development. We just talked about it already and what they've done. Some of those guys have taken a step forward. They don't have really just one guy. They have a lockdown defense. They play great on that side of the ball, really aggressive style of defense, and they attack the ball as soon as it crosses half court, which a lot of teams in this conference are doing now. But if they did have a single guy who's a consistent threat, his name is Ben Bradford. And last year, 2.5 points per game, 8.5 minutes. That's all he had last year. This year, 13.5 points, 12 or more in his last 2 games, both in conference play, both in close games and or wins. So you need more guys to step up around him, consistent 10-plus a night scorers around him to continue to really have this type of success. But if they play their brand of defense and they get 1 or 2 more scorers that they can confidently give the ball to, I wouldn't put them out of a possible March run or a team that's in the upper echelon of this conference because of some of the talent that they've shown so far.
And I think you make a great point of just finding that one other, maybe 2 other scorers.
They're
so
this close.
But the thing is, even though they're this close, right, they're still winning basketball games.
Yeah.
And so I think that could just take them to that next level.
They're winning those games now.
Right.
Continuing to win those, great. Keep it going. But at some point, realistically, they're going to drop some of those close games. The more close games you got, the more this thing doesn't bounce your direction. Things aren't going to actually go your way, and you're going to lose some games. But if they get those 2 guys, 2 extra guys, not even specific names, 2 extra guys to step up their production, then all of a sudden I think this is a completely different team.
I agree with you. Now, there is one team that hasn't had a problem with production the last couple of weeks, and that is the South Florida Bulls, the top offense in the American right now. You had a chance to call one of their games in person.
I did.
So for you, first-hand point of view, you got to talk to Brian Hodgson.
Yep.
You also got to see it in person. What stands out about South Florida?
I've got 2 words, Maria.
Okay, let's
2
hear
words to describe both Coach Hodgson in his first season there and also just South Florida as a whole. Intense and grit. My gosh, they've got all the intensity. They've got all the grit. They have that high-octane offense. You would think, and you look at these numbers, this is a finesse team. They run the floor. They run the fast break. No, they want to run through your face. They want to put you on your backside, and that is okay with them. I mean, you've talked about it already. Lost that 2-overtime thriller to UAB. Man, that was a fun game. Back and forth in the conference opener, and it felt like those were 2 teams that believe they're the best in the conference. Well, then South Florida comes back. They've won those games from that point forward, had a gritty win at North Texas, had another couple of wins against Tulsa. Excuse me, that's the only 2 they've had so far. So then they get East Carolina tonight. They get Wichita State coming up. They're going to have challenges, but every team that they're going to play is going to leave beat up. Yeah. They're going to leave tired and dismantled because that's what South Florida wants to do to you. And it's such an awesome balance. My goodness, I love the balance because you have 2 guys, Pinion and Enos, who average a combined 19 threes attempted per game.
How about
that's
Enos the other day? What did he finish with, like 36
points? He had 36 points, most out of anybody in the American. He had 8 threes in the first half. So just lit up the three-point line, and he can do that any night. But those 2 guys combine with 19 attempted threes per game. That's the highest number in the conference, one of the highest numbers in the country. Meanwhile, they're also top 10 in rim runs this season, which means
say that 3 times fast.
Rim runs this season. Rim runs this season. Rim runs this season. You get through and get down to the hoop, and they have that balance from inside to outside. When the guys outside are hitting, they're going to hit you down low, and they're going to find an open man at the bucket. Same thing vice versa. If they're attacking the paint, the second you close in, they're going to hit some perimeter shots. They are so balanced. And one of these guys that I really want to highlight outside of Pinion and Enos, I think Isaiah Nelson, if I had a vote, and I don't, if I had a vote for the American Conference Player of the Year right now, he's my vote.
Really?
He would be my vote.
Okay.
Early vote for Conference Player of the Year. Some might argue that just because he's not flashy, he's not over the top, but his numbers look the case. He's one of the few people in the league right now averaging a double-double. He can strike for 25 a night, any given night, against some of the best defenses in the conference. And even in that game against North Texas, he was held to single digits in the first half, explodes in the second half, and he's the reason they won that game on the road against the best statistical defense in the conference. So he's an absolute machine. But I think there's other guys that are going to be flashier with the threes and the scoring and the steals and the fast breaks and things like that. forget all that. He's an old school post player that does everything right, and he is a gritty, bring your hard hat to work type of guy. And I think Isaiah Nelson needs a lot more credit for how South Florida is playing than he's really getting from a national standpoint.
All right, well, we're going to give him credit on the show, and then we'll continue to cover him throughout the year if he continues to do that. And
if anybody watches this show, just know I'm a big Isaiah Nelson fan, and just put a pin in it as the year goes on.
Noted. But we'll keep that in the back of our pockets in case that we need to prove that you were right once again, like we've done a lot of times on this show. And I think you bring up a good point about the grittiness of South Florida. I go back to preseason, right before they even started playing, and their social team at South Florida, we're giving credit to social teams, they do a great job, but there was a practice clip of Brian Hodgson, and he was just lecturing his team that nobody in the country can practice harder than South Florida. That was his goal. He wasn't talking about games. He wasn't talking about anything. They haven't played a game yet. Mm-hmm. He hadn't been coaching South Florida like he hadn't coached a game as the head coach of South Florida yet. And if you watch the clips of them practicing and how the guys looked bought in, and now you see that playing out, the fact that you tell me that they're gritty and they're intense, that doesn't surprise me at all, because he's been setting this tone since the first day he got this job. I
loved getting to talk to him because we didn't even talk really anything about the game. We just talked because it was the first time I had gotten to meet him in person. And the more that we just talked about hoops in general and the way that the college game was going. And we talked about some old stories and things like that. And his intensity, it's not an over intensity where it's fabricated. He's intense because he cares, and he's intense because he's locked in to his job, and he's locked into those around him, and he's going to pour in to those guys more than they even really, I think, realize as the season goes on. I think he's the perfect guy for a job like that, especially coming on the heels of the tragedy there last year, losing Amir Abdur-Rahim, and of course, rest in peace to Coach Abdur-Rahim. And that's not an easy job to take over because they had a down year last year dealing with that tragedy, high expectations. Then they come into the year and they're automatically supposed to be the top of the conference again. They're picked second in the preseason poll. They're heralded as one of the more talented teams in the conference. So as a first-year head coach, his goal is very simple. Don't mess it up.
Right.
And you can tell he is locked in to not messing that up. And I think they've got all the pieces there at South Florida to be really successful. And watching that team live, there's only a couple teams I'll say this about. I would see them and say that should be an NCAA tournament team. And that was one of the few in the conference that I think that team has what it takes to be an NCAA tournament team.
I think just watching them on TV, you can see that as well. So from one team that you think can be an NCAA tournament team, let's move on to a team that was an NCAA tournament team last year.
Yes.
And that's the Memphis Tigers.
Can I be real with you?
Let's do it.
For a second. They're not one of the teams that I would say that's the case.
All right.
And that's odd for me to say with as much talent and with as much overall ability Memphis has on their roster. But I just think it's a little different this year. This is a young team. And by young, it's not young in the same way as Penny Hardaway has dealt with in the past, where it's all freshmen and sophomores and these high-level recruits that are going to go one and done, or that are going to go one and then go play for a power program. This is now a power program, and they're recruiting all sorts of experience, but it's an entirely new roster, and that's what I mean by young. They haven't played together a whole lot. And I think at this point in time, they're not playing their best brand of basketball. They were held in check early against North Texas, won that game in a really low-scoring rock fight game. They lose, of course, to FAU. They didn't play particularly well against Rice. I mean, that was a 76-70 game between the top team in the preseason poll and one of the bottom two teams in the preseason poll, and yet it was a two-possession game on the road at Tudor Fieldhouse. Do I think they can get there? Absolutely. I think Memphis has everything in terms of the talent, in terms of the roster makeup, and of course the coaching staff to be an NCAA tournament team again. But right now I'm looking at South Florida and I'm saying, okay, they should be there. UAB could probably be there. I liked what I saw from Tulsa early, not as much late, but that's kind of where I am with Memphis. I don't like what I see right now. They're under 500 for a reason. A lot of times your record is what your record is because that's who you are. And I think they'll peak at the right time. Don't count on them being out at the moment. Get ready to see them peak in February and March, and then we can revisit this and see what's happening.
And I think for Penny Hardaway and his staff, the entirely new roster thing isn't anything new. They did the exact same thing last year where he had a lot of new coaches on his staff as well. So it was a lot of new, and we saw the success that they had. So if you're a Memphis fan, I think, you know how I always like to switch everything in my head because like that's how my softball brain worked, like, when you got to drop one in a series so that you don't go undefeated against the team.
I hate that.
Yeah, I know you hate that, but this is my reverse thinking on this is last year, from the very beginning, we knew it was an NCAA tournament team. They were taking down top opponents, even in their non-conference games, and then they get to the tournament as a 5 seed and they lose to a 12. So if you're a Memphis fan, do you maybe feel a little bit better? Okay, maybe we'll peak at the right time. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
From what I'm seeing right now,
I see your thought process here.
No, this is my thought process.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I even agree with my thought process. I'm saying at this point in time, I do agree with you. I don't see them as an NCAA tournament team right now, but at the same time, in the back of my mind, it's Memphis, it's Penny Hardaway. They know how to win basketball games. They know how to get to March Madness. So again, I wouldn't count them out either.
Yeah, you look at up and down the roster in their stat sheet. They have one guy, Doug McDaniel, who is averaging double figures, and he's doing a little bit of everything. He's kind of their guy.
Right.
After that, it's just a bunch of dudes. I mean, McDaniel's been great, and I think that's part of who they are as a team. They usually do have that one guy. It's been some of those guys in the past that we've talked about heavily on this show that, is always going to be a go-to scorer like PJ Haggerty. And even McDaniel's stats are nowhere close to what Haggerty did last year. But when you had a PJ Haggerty averaging 22 a game, you had a Dane Danger behind him averaging 14, and a Tyrese Hunter averaging 14, and a Colby Rogers averaging 11. This year you've got McDaniel, and then next on your roster is Sincere Parker, who's averaging 9 points even per game. It's just not the same roster makeup. Now, where Memphis can benefit is outside of their top 2 or 3 guys, there's a bunch of other guys that are really good, that are solid players. And at some point, I anticipate one of them to start seeing their numbers creep up close to what we're seeing from Doug McDaniel. So it's not over yet. There's a long way to go. And there's a lot of learning left to be done, but I'm hoping they're learning from these close games and getting beat by 13 on the road against Florida Atlantic. All of that, I think, plays a factor when you've got a team that hasn't played a lot together, and they're going to have to continue to get better and peak at the right time. I think they are learning. I think they will be a contributor when this is all said and done, but this isn't the same Memphis that we've seen in the past.
No, it's definitely not, but is that a good thing at the end of the season? We'll see.
Maybe. Who knows?
To be determined.
A
lot of basketball left.
A lot of basketball left. I mentioned them a second ago, Tulsa and the Golden Hurricane. This is a team that I got to see early in the season in non-conference play. And one, I'm a big Eric Conkle believer. I think he is a good basketball coach. He's built some programs where all of this was happening. And, of course, they had the best non-conference slate since Bill Self was the head coach in Tulsa. That's a long time ago. Bill Self has won some natties since then up in Lawrence, Kansas with the Kansas Jayhawks. So Tulsa has the talent. I'm shocked they haven't been better in conference play as opposed to what I saw watching them live. I mean, I was convinced watching them live that they were a top 35 team in the country, and they got up to close to that in the net rankings prior to dropping a couple of these conference games. David Green, I think he's a pro player waiting to happen. Yeah. Miles Barnstable is a walking highlight reel.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, there's too many players to count, but there's also too many inconsistencies. When you go in and look at their box scores up and down, all of the averages look great because they went 12-1 in conference play.
Right.
But now that they've been in conference play, you've seen some guys disappear. You've seen some other key contributors that were great against lesser competition that are now starting to kind of set aside. I think Eric Conkle knows the type of team that he has, and in our conversations, he's talked about how this is probably the makeup of the team he would want. But in year 3 for him, 5 for him at Tulsa, year 4 for him, so I was in between.
You were close enough.
Close
I'll
around.
give it to you, yeah.
Year 4, at some point, you're going to have to say, all right, boom, here we go. Let's make it happen. And I think this is the roster to do it. But then you look up and they're 1-2, and they've lost 2 of their first 3 in American Conference play.
When you take a look at those 2 losses, and as you said, you saw them play in person and you were really high on them, you talk about the inconsistencies. But when you point to those 2 losses for you, like, what is it, and how does Eric Kunkel get this team back on track?
A little bit is they're allowing a lot of threes in those games. They allowed 16 threes in their loss to South Florida. I mean, they're playing good teams. Let's not get it twisted. They played on the road at North Texas in the Super Pit, where South Florida ended a 13-game winning streak for North Texas there. But they lost to South Florida, too, another team that we just talked about as probably the best and most talented team in the conference right now. They allowed 16 threes against South Florida. That was the game where Wes Enos goes off for 36 points and just hit all those threes in the first half. They allowed North Texas in that game, one of their 2 losses this year, to hit 44% from the three-point line in that game. Let me be very clear. North Texas is not a very good three-point shooting team. And if they're hitting 44%, that means you might want to crash out and get outside a little bit. So I think their three-point perimeter defense just hasn't been good this year. And then outside of that, it's just one bad night to another bad night to another bad night, and they kind of feed off of each other. When all things are going well for Tulsa, it all goes really well. But when things start going south, even in the game that I had with them, they were destroying New Mexico State in Frisco, Texas. And it was Tulsa was leading by a significant margin. They had all the momentum. And then all of a sudden, 2 shots fall for New Mexico State. And then they boom, 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 they're right back in it with a quick run of their own. So things can go south very quickly outside of just the perimeter defense. And I think you got to avoid those runs, play better on the perimeter, and all of a sudden I think Tulsa's once again a contender in my eyes.
Just like we said with Memphis, there's a lot of basketball left to be played, and what we saw from Tulsa early on had us believing.
Yeah.
So can they start riding the ship? They play Charlotte tonight, and I think that's a good game. A Charlotte team that's playing pretty well. It might allow Tulsa to get back on track with a win that they could feel good about.
This game is going to tell us a lot about both teams. Both teams, because Tulsa, one, is a team that I think on paper is better than Charlotte. Charlotte is a team that on paper shouldn't be 3-1 in conference play, but they are, and here we are. So who is going to step up and prove they are who we were, or either who we thought they were in terms of Tulsa, or they aren't who we thought they were in Charlotte? And I think we're going to learn a lot about that in tonight's game.
All right, locked in on all the matchups that happened tonight. One team that I'll always believe in because they've had success in the American under Andy Kennedy, that's the UAB Blazers. All 4 conference games decided by 5 points or less. They're 2-2. So one of those teams on paper who I think could have a better record, but again, just really close losses.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about UAB.
You're undecided right now?
Right now, yeah. I'm kind of sitting right there on the fence. One, because I believe in Andy Kennedy.
Too.
This is a really good conference of coaches, and Kennedy is at the top of that list. When it comes to their games and their wins so far, they had that great win, 2 overtimes against South Florida. You thought, oh my goodness, UAB is here to stay. Bartow Arena is going to be flowing all season long. They're going to really be running in the right direction. Instead, maybe not the case, because they lost to some solid teams. Florida Atlantic, who we mentioned earlier, Wichita State, who we'll talk about in a minute. They had a tight win against East Carolina to stay 500, and East Carolina is winless in conference play right now. And that was even a close call in their own right. I feel like we're going to learn a lot about UAB over this next 6-game stretch. Tulane, Tulsa, South Florida again, UTSA, North Texas, and Memphis.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 6 games where maybe 5 of those 6 games where it's a toss-up based on what you've done at 2-2 so far.
Right.
And in those 6 games, I think you're going to see exactly what this team is, and you're going to learn about them. I think they're going to learn a lot about themselves.
They lost 100% of their scoring last year. I think that's just like a crazy fact to me. I know that that's the era of college basketball.
Yeah, they're not the only team in the conference that did that.
I know, but it just sounds so wild when you think about where they've been the last 2 years, especially in the conference. And so I think I'm on the same page with you here. Like, I think these next couple of games are going to tell us exactly who they are. The reason I keep holding out hope for UAB is exactly what you said at the beginning, is I just have a lot of belief in Andy Kennedy and what he's been able to do. And so I think that under his leadership, they can gel in the right direction. But these games where they're going to be playing those formidable opponents, they need to win a few of those to not only build confidence, but get the record where they wanted it to be.
Yeah, and I think their production speaks for itself. They have 5 players that are averaging in double figures right now, but I've got bad news for you. Yaxel Lindeborg is not walking through those doors again.
Yeah.
He's up in Michigan. He's doing his thing with Dusty May and the Wolverines. However, they did have a guy walk through those doors, and his name is Chance Westry, the Syracuse and Auburn transfer. He started at Auburn, went to Syracuse, leads the way, played just 17 games, or has played 17 games this year. He played just 14 games in his first 2 collegiate years, so not a ton of experience, but also not a ton of tread on the tires, or he has all the tread left on the tires himself. So I look at Westry and what he's been able to do, leading the team in scoring, kind of that all-around guard play. I like it, and I think it's good. But, again, it's tough to tell across the board because they've had such good guard play from Westry, from Mayer, from Robinson, but no one shoots the 3 very well on their roster at all. I mean, they're bottom 2 in the conference in three-point makes. They're bottom 3 in field goal percentage from deep as well. They don't hit the 3. They're mostly a drive and kick type of team, but they're settling for these mid-range jumpers and these contested threes, and they're not shooting a high clip because of that. And when I look up and I see them at the bottom of the conference in both of those categories, yet they're 2-2, that's what sticks out to me because they're really good in almost everything else. Turnovers and blocks and rebounds. Like they're a top 5, I think, rebounding team in the conference right now. So everything else looks good except for 3-point shooting. So maybe that's the missing element by UAB. And if it's Andy Kennedy that's going to try and push them in the right direction, I still think he can do that, and he'll find what's wrong. And then at some point they're going to click and they're going to go on a run. We're going to sit right here and be like, hey, we told you they were going to go on a run. It's part of it. So that's where I'm at with UAB.
All right, that's where we're at with UAB. You want to talk about Wichita State?
Yes, please.
All right, let's do it. So the Shockers had some close losses. They're still a team. I feel like we're talking about everybody. We'll figure out who they are. That's how I feel about Wichita State as well. I'm still not sure who they are. And we saw this team last year. And again, as we keep saying, new players, new faces. But Wichita State was a team that we had high expectations for. They didn't perform well. And then in that latter half of conference play, they went on a run. So I'm not counting them out yet. We've seen some good things. We've seen some bad things. But I'm still undecided on this Shockers team.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I mean, they're top 5 in points per game. They're second in opponents allowed. In opponents' points per game allowed. They were top 10 in both categories last year, yet they finished at just 8-10 in conference play. So they've shown already that they can be a middle-of-the-road team. But now in year 3 with Paul Mills, I think you're starting to see some of the balance return and some of what they wanted to see across the board because they saw 7 players leave for graduation, not even the transfer portal. Now, they missed a couple guys like Quincy Ballard went to Mississippi State. Corey Washington went to SMU. They lost a couple of key contributors to the transfer portal, but mostly a team that returns nothing again from a scoring element. 0.9% of their scoring last year is back, and 12 total letter winners. My goodness, I can't talk right now.
It's all right. Words are hard sometimes.
Yeah, 12 total letter winners are gone from last year's team too. So I'm looking at them and saying, okay, new team, what's the identity? I have no idea because you beat UAB, you turn around and you lose 2 straight to Charlotte and to Rice, and then you beat North Texas where you pretty much dominated the game all the way through. So I'm looking across the board and I'm saying, wow, 2 really good wins, 2 really bad losses in what this team was anticipated to say. So maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe that's kind of where their roadblock is at this point because I'm looking at it and I'm seeing 2 entirely different teams each time that they take the floor.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point because it's like we've seen teams, as we just talked about UAB, with those 1-point loss or games decided by 1 point. And Wichita State's kind of the opposite. Like you're saying, good wins, bad losses, and you don't know where that middle ground is. I think it comes back to what we've been talking about with all these teams is consistency.
Yeah.
And where does that consistency need to come from? They have Kenyon Giles, the UNC Greensboro transfer, who's made somewhat of an impact, but there needs to be more people who consistently step up for the Shockers if they want to have more of those good wins and less of those bad losses.
Yeah, and maybe it's just based on their shooting. on the way that they shoot the ball. I mean, they shot 51% and out-rebounded North Texas by 8. They had some turnovers in that game, but that was mostly because you're playing North Texas that feeds off of turnovers and is going to try and force a lot of those turnovers on defense. So maybe if they shoot the ball effectively, that's the difference between winning and losing for them. And if it's that thin of a margin where the ball goes in the hoop and then you're winning games and the ball doesn't go in the hoop, then you're losing games. You got to find a couple other ways that are going to set you apart. And I don't know if Wichita State has that right now.
Not right now, but maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future.
We'll have to figure it out. Lots of games this week that we already mentioned. We should take a look at all of them, though, because there's a couple coming up that I know I have circled.
Okay, which one do you have circled?
All right, Temple Memphis, because that one was fun last year.
That was fun last year.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Especially Memphis now this year coming off a loss. Temple undefeated in conference play. I like Florida Atlantic and Temple, too, because based on what we just said, those are two of the top teams right now in the conference. An undefeated Temple, a Florida Atlantic team that's only lost to Tulane, but has some big wins.
That game would be awesome if Temple can up in Memphis. Not that I'm cheering for Temple to up in Memphis. I don't need any hateful DMs. But if that does happen, I think it'd be great to see two undefeated teams battling it out on ESPNU, kind of a showcase for the conference as a whole. And maybe that's the way that it's going to go. Maybe it's not. Either way, I think it's still a chance for Temple to have a statement win at home against the best team that they've played so far on their schedule. And then I'm excited to see that one in the bottom right-hand corner, mostly because I want to see how Tulane in the backcourt stand up against North Texas. That's probably the best defense they've faced so far this season. I've already seen South Florida stand up to them and see how that backcourt fared. Backcourt didn't really play great against North Texas. A couple guys, I mean, Pinion played well. Enos didn't play well at all.
No, I think he had like 3 points.
Yeah, he was held in check for the majority of the game. So is Brumball and some of these other guys on Tulane going to have some normal success there against North Texas? That's what I'm excited to watch.
I think for me, I'm going to watch all the games because we get so excited about it. Those ones are definitely ones that I'm just like, really locked in, because I think we talk so much about chaos in football. Basketball is even more chaos because there's more games and there's just so much parity. And I think that's what I love about it, you know?
That is really exactly the case because, like we said at the beginning of the show, it is wide open as a conference. Anybody could win it, really. And that's what I love about college basketball is the even playing field. You get a shot at you're one of the top 10 teams in the tournament, which this year that's the case. Top 10 teams make the tournament, then you got a shot to make it to the big dance. And I think right now there are 10 teams I'm looking at and I'm saying, yeah, okay, I can see how you could have a path when you make it into that tournament.
Well, we talk about the big dance. One team that went to the big dance a couple of years ago and went all the way to the Final Four was the Florida Atlantic Owls, and we got to talk to a member of the Florida Atlantic team who wasn't on that Final Four team, but he was the American Conference Player of the Week this week, so we had to have a chat with him.
Carlyle. Oh, the touch from Kanaan Carlyle. Off of that goofy foot, just shifty in the paint.
When you have top performances against some of the top teams in the American Conference, you get to join All-American. So we have with us now Florida Atlantic's Kanaan Carlyle. Kanaan, welcome to All-American.
Thank you.
So your Owls team is currently 3-1 in conference play. You're 11-6 overall. What has been working for this team so far this season?
Just staying obsessed with growth. Of course, we had our fair share of games this year where we didn't look so good, where we lost, where we got blown out. So it's all growth. We learn from our experiences, and we got a great coaching staff, and Coach Jacobs and his staff. So just staying in the lab each and every day, practicing hard, pushing each other, and we learning what it takes to win.
We're going to talk about Coach Jacobs and that coaching staff in just a little bit, but I want to go back to your 2 wins from this past week. You beat UAB, and then most recently you beat Memphis. What did it take for the Owls to be victorious in those, especially against teams that have won the American in the past 2 years?
Well, we really focus on turnovers, especially for me, being one of the leaders on this team. I had 6 turnovers against Tulane. But that's what we've been focusing on, taking care of the ball. We knew going into these 2 games that these 2 teams want to play in transition, want to play fast. So just taking care of the ball, getting back on defense, talking to one another, sharing the ball, playing with each other, and most importantly, staying confident, just having fun with each other. So that's really what we've been focusing on, and it ended up showing out tonight. Yesterday.
It certainly seems to be working for you. This is your third stop in your college career, and you talk a little bit about wanting to be the leader for this program. For you, how have you grown in your third season in college basketball, especially here at Florida Atlantic?
Yeah, it all just come from experience. Having these last 2 years at Stanford and Indiana, I learned a lot during those situations. Last year, it didn't turn out the way I wanted to, the way most people thought it was, but I learned a lot from that situation. Being able to bring it all to FAU with Coach Akers, bringing my experiences to the team, and just being obsessed with growth. Like I said earlier, I just want to get better each and every day. This team wants to get better each and every day. So that's all we're striving for, and I'm just here to help in any way I can.
I love how you say being obsessed with growth, because I think that's the only way that you get better, not only on the basketball court, but in the classroom, in life. And you mentioned Coach Jacobs and the staff. How have they helped this team grow from game to game, day by day, and even year by year?
Man, the things Coach Jacobs and his staff do for us on a daily basis, as far as film, game plans, even outside of basketball, it means a lot to us. Helps us a lot. As y'all see, we won 2 great games in a row against 2 good teams, and that's all due to Jacobs and how much confidence he puts in us, how much belief he has in us, and it's just a testament to the staff and the game plans they put together for us and the training they do for us.
If you could describe the confidence level of this team right now and how they're operating, how would you do it? Like, where is that confidence level?
High. Our confidence high. Our confidence should stay high. Even if we lose games, even if we go on a little stretch where it don't look as pretty, we should always keep our confidence. Coach Jacobs already told us in a team meeting that we should not ever lose our confidence. Confidence is something that we should never lose. So that's something that we've been hanging on to, and we all are starting to just show what we can do and play with full confidence.
I think the fun thing about the American Conference is that anybody can beat anyone on any given day. You are 3-1 right now in conference play, but you have 2 tough matchups coming up again this week in Wichita State and Temple. So what has the messaging been from Coach Jacobs and the entire staff to get you guys ready for these next 2 opponents?
Just staying consistent. We already know defensively that we have to be locked in. That's what's going to carry us to these wins, even when our shot isn't falling. So just staying consistent, following the scout, following the game plans, staying focused, and just like we said, staying confident in ourselves, putting the work in each and every day, taking care of our bodies, just carrying ourselves like pros each and every day. And that's what's going to get us to where we want to go.
And where is it that this team wants to go?
National championship. We want to win. We feel like we're putting something special over here at FAU. So we want to win. We want to win at a high level, and we're all learning what it takes to win.
Last question for you. You talk about that national championship. Florida Atlantic isn't a stranger to the Final Four. They've been there before. So what will it take for this team to get back there at the end of the season?
Work ethic and staying consistent. Like I said earlier, our defense needs to travel everywhere we go. That's what's going to be our backbone when our offense isn't falling, when our offense isn't flowing. So just make sure our defense travels, make sure we're pushing each other to get better each and every day, practicing hard, and listening. The most important thing is listening to the coaches, listening to the assistants, listen to when we have game plans, when we have scouts, focus on it all, and we'll see where we end up by the end of the year.
Well, Kanaan, we'll pay attention to that defense, the confidence, all of it. Thank you so much for joining All-American today.
Thank y'all for having me.
Another awesome interview with our student athlete spotlight. Carlyle's been great throughout the year for Florida Atlantic. One of the guys that I mentioned earlier as taking steps in the right direction under John Jacobs, and you addressed that a little bit there. Great job as always.
Thank you. I wish you could have been here for it, but maybe another day. We'll see.
You kind of said that tongue in cheek, like it's my fault that y'all did the interview this morning.
Hey, it's not my fault. We have to play with student athlete schedules. But what I will say is the one thing that stood out to me in that interview was just the fact that Kanaan Carlyle and his teammates just love John Jacobs and that staff.
I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either.
Yeah.
We've seen him have success. We've seen him develop players. We talked about it, and that's why they're having the success that they're having right now.
It's funny because I haven't had the chance to interact with John Jacobs other than when he was at Baylor. I interacted with him when he was at Baylor under Scott Drew. And since then, he would never know who I am. He would never know where the connection was. It was back when I was working for a radio station down there. And he just continues to elevate, and I think he's the right man for the job. Said it when he got the job, and here he is 2 years into it, looking like a legitimate contender in the American. Maybe he can get Florida Atlantic back to NCAA tournament action. How about getting the Owls back to the big dance? Speaking of, we got a little NCAA tournament trivia. How about that?
Ooh, I love it. I'm not going to be good at it.
We're going to go in alphabetical order. I say that a little tongue-in-cheek because UAB is first, and I know it's Alabama, Birmingham, but they don't go by Alabama, Birmingham. They go by UAB, but they're going to be first, and I want to name the last time each of these schools, and this is without any prior studying, each time these schools were last in the NCAA tournament. I want you to start. Go UAB. What's your
I know
guess?
this one. 2024.
That is correct. 2024 for UAB. Do you know Charlotte?
I do not know Charlotte.
I said it earlier in the show, actually.
1983.
No, that's not it. That was another year before we started recording the show.
Okay,
that we
so
talked
that's
about.
one of the answers.
Not today. Maybe next week.
Okay.
Charlotte was 2005.
Okay.
I think that's correct. I think we're going to go all the way through this, and then we're going to get the answers. East Carolina, do you know?
East Carolina. 2008.
I'm going to say 1994.
Okay.
I think it was like 93 or 94, but I'm going to go 94.
Okay.
Florida Atlantic.
Oh, I know this one. Wait, I got to do the math in my head. 2023.
Nope, it was
22,
also 2024.
Oh,
they made it that year as well as the same year as UAB. UAB won the tournament.
Okay.
Florida Atlantic was an at-large bid
Okay.
that year. Oh, I got close on East Carolina. I picked the wrong year.
Okay.
I said 94. I should have said 93. I knew it was one of those 2 years.
You know what I was doing? I was doing the math in my head for Final Four appearance for Florida Atlantic. Was that 22 or 23? I couldn't remember.
23 was the Final
23
Four
was the
appearance.
Final Four,
so they
yeah.
were coming off of the Final Four appearance.
Okay.
And that ultimately was the case. Okay. The Final Four appearance was their last year in Conference USA. Then they jumped to the American. Had a great year, just not winning the tournament.
Got you.
So they got the at-large bid.
Awesome.
All right. Memphis, North Texas, Rice, and South Florida. Any of these that you know off the jump?
I know Memphis because it was last year.
Okay, yeah, 2025. That's
Yeah.
easy. North Texas.
1983.
No!
You said 1983 for something today.
That was for the women, the North Texas women. North Texas men won a game against Zach Edey
Oh
in
yeah.
2021.
Okay, ignore me.
Disrespectful.
I'm
That's
sorry.
unbelievable.
I'm not good at trivia. Do not put me on your. I have actually a totally unrelated trivia story that I'll save for later.
Yeah,
That
thank
will make you
goodness.
laugh. Yeah.
Okay,
No one
Rice.
needs to hear that right
2021 for North Texas. Rice?
now. 2000.
No. Long time ago. I actually knew this because I was doing some Rice prep
Okay.
recently.
All right.
1970.
Okay.
That's the longest streak in the conference.
Ooh.
1970. Rice still going to. The Tudor Fieldhouse is a fun little place to play. They got to get some success out there, though. All right, South Florida.
Okay.
USF.
So I really don't know. I know when they won the regular season, they were thinking they were going to get that at large, and there were all the bid stealers that year, so they didn't
Yeah.
get it. I'm going to say 2010.
I'm right around there. I'm going to say 2011.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
man.
Okay. We were
Okay, so
close on that one.
2012. Well, I
Alright.
got the rest of them right, though.
Yeah.
The top two were easy, and I just happened to see the Rice one. So.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
moving on. Next slide is.
Who do we have left?
Oh, this is the 5-person slide or 5-team slide.
Oh, okay.
This is going to be a hard one. Temple.
2009.
I feel like it's recent.
You think? You say 2009.
This is bad radio. I'm thinking, I want to say it was like right before COVID. In like,
Like 19?
I think it was 19.
Okay.
I'm going to say 19. I'm throwing it out there. I'm going to say 19.
All right.
UTSA has been a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to go 1980.
Did they have a basketball team in 1980?
Probably not.
I don't know if they did. I mean, they probably
No, they
did.
probably did. I'm saying 1990. Let's say 1990.
Yeah, I'll just go like 96. Something like that. I don't know. Tulane. What do you think there?
Ooh. I feel like, okay, I'm going to say 20.
Ron Hunter hasn't done it. He hasn't gone. They haven't gone under Ron Hunter, even though they probably should soon.
Yeah, 2018. You think it's that
I think it's
recent?
longer. I think it's
ago?
longer. I'm gonna say 97.
Oh, that long
I'm gonna say
ago?
yeah. I think it was like early
Okay, 2000.
or mid 90s. Tulsa. You said 2000 for Tulsa?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, they went back in like 2015.
No, I'm saying Tulane 2000.
Oh,
'cause
2000
you
for
said
Tulane.
I was too far.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
2000 is probably a nice guess.
All right.
Tulsa went. I'm gonna say 2015.
All right, I'll say 2016.
Okay, and then Wichita State. I know this one because they were in the tournament
Right.
the last time North Texas was in it. So 2021
2021.
is the one for Wichita State. What you got here on the results? So Temple.
Oh, I was right.
that's
Let's go.
2019.
I was a complete.
We helped together.
Yeah,
We were way off on UTSA.
We had no idea on.
I don't remember that team at all when they were in the Southland Conference.
I did not know that one. You
Yeah.
were close on.
Tulane. I
on-
said what 96, 97.
You said 96 for Tulane. I said 2016 for Tulsa, right? Or did
Yeah,
say-
I said 2015.
You said 15, and I picked a year different. Okay.
Yeah, and then we got Wichita
Wichita
State there,
State.
so not too far off.
I was wrong on Temple. You picked up the slack.
Nailed
and got
Temple.
2019.
Yeah,
Good job.
2019 on that one.
Give you credit for that.
Thank
one.
you. Thank
and
you.
most of them.
They were
'cause-
pretty good in 2022, and then that COVID year I think shut it all down, and
Yeah.
they didn't get to play that tournament. But
Yeah.
yeah, lots of NCAA tournament trivia. We're gonna do it again next week for the women's side, but you cannot look. You can't look.
I'm not looking.
No, like between now and then.
Oh, I won't look. I promise.
Yeah, because we gotta go off the dome, or else it's gonna be bad radio.
It's not fun when you like cheat, and
Yeah.
and I just know that I'm not very good at trivia, so I think it also makes for even better TV when I mess it up.
When you're bad at trivia.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like when I can't identify stadiums that I've literally been in. Like
yeah,
that's just
that
not
one
good.
was rough.
Yeah.
That was a
Or
tough
Lincoln
one.
Financial.
That's a tough
Yeah.
one. Yeah, we got to do some arenas because we did part one of the arena quiz
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
We got some other arenas. We're going to see if we can test that knowledge again, too.
Yeah.
But you know what you are good at? I'll give you credit.
Oh, what?
Picking top plays
Is that feels sarcastic because you roast me for my top plays.
sometimes.
All right.
But I feel like you got it right this week. Let's take a look, starting
All right.
with number 5.
I'll start with number 5. North Texas and Tulane. Micaiah Chase, pay attention to her. She's going to chase this ball down, throw it to her teammate, Shania Price. Makes the bucket.
Nicely done, running the floor. The premium gas only that
Ooh.
Jason Burton and company talk about. They want to run the floor. They want to force you into turnovers. They want to get up and down and get things rolling in the right direction. North Texas trying to find their groove a little bit in the American. I'm interested to see how they continue to grow and if they're one of the top teams. We'll talk about them a little more in depth next week. Moving on to number 4, the only note you gave me on this top play sheet says FAU alley-oop. So I'm going to assume there's an FAU alley-oop on here.
Nope. That was
Okay,
the
what
wrong
was it
one.
then?
It was a Kyron Lindsey Martin defense. Can we redo this?
No, let's keep going. This is a live show.
I know it's a live show, but I want to redo it because that was my fault. I put the wrong note in the document. Kyron Lindsey Martin from UAB, slam dunk through the defense of East Carolina. This was completely on me, viewers. Kyle did not mess it up.
Right when I was giving you credit.
I know. Maria messed up the notes
Man.
and put the wrong one at number 4.
All right.
The one you were
I'm gonna
talking
take
about
number
is
3.
You should also take number 2 because that was the last one you just did.
Okay.
Okay,
So
but here's number 3.
this is number 3. It's
Yeah.
also the Blazers, but it's Alicia Carter taking it to the basket. UAB and Florida Atlantic. All the way inside she goes to get that tough bucket.
Yep, there we go. More Blazers. And now for top play number 2, you can talk about Florida Atlantic.
The Florida Atlantic alley-oop. Nice. Let's go to number 2 with the Florida Atlantic alley-oop. Oh, I watched this game. Okay, we're good.
Yeah,
so,
let's do it.
you've got that high post. You go right up into it. Wham. Backdoor. Easy money. Alley-oop for FAU.
You want to know my favorite part?
What's that?
They're both named Devin. It's
There was
Devin
Devin to
Vanderpool to Devin Williams.
Okay.
Double Devin for the dunk. Look at that alliteration.
Yeah. Hey, and Devin Vanderpool, we talked about earlier, has been great. Devin Williams, kind of that undersung hero right now, trying to take a step up for FAU in the alley-oop against the Tigers. I like it.
I like it too. I'll do play number 1 because I gave you no notes on this one.
Well, it's Jordan Riley, right?
Yeah, so all it said
East
was
Carolina.
Jordan Riley is good at dunking the basketball. That was my note for Kyle. But
Bang!
It's self-explanatory. I didn't even need to say too much. It's true. Jordan Riley's good at dunking the basketball.
I hope our fans enjoy this moment. I hope they just revel in this moment and they're like, man, look at these two.
I can't wait until we go off air and Kyle and our producer, Zach Fisher, along with Corey in the back. I always say Corey's last name wrong. It's Bulin.
Yeah,
and I
it's
was
Bulin.
about to say Bolin.
Well, you got it right,
It's
though.
Bulin.
Yeah.
But anyway, when they all tell me how I
You
mess
act
this
like
up,
we're going to be mad. Like, this is part of top
I'm
plays.
embarrassed. I
It's
feel
the
bad.
craziness of top plays.
It's
and
chaos,
what happens.
right?
It's chaos.
It's chaos.
That's how it goes.
Complete chaos. But those
Part
are
of
the
it.
top 5 plays of the week. 4 and 2 got a little misconstrued there,
That's
thanks to
okay.
me. But I'll try to be better next week, not only for you, but all of our viewers of All American.
We got through it. They got to see the top
We
plays. They're fine.
survived. I really wanted a
fine.
do-over, but this is how we grow in life, people.
Live television is tough sometimes.
Just a little bit.
Well, that was fun.
That was a
Talking
lot of
some
fun.
basketball.
Yeah, ball
Yeah.
is life. Hoop season is back.
Back next week with the first fully dedicated women's basketball show.
Yep.
Next week. Can't wait to see how that one unfolds because there's a lot of storylines on that side of the conference too.
Ooh, I'm excited about that one. This week was fun. I'm really excited to talk women's hoops next week. The Rice Owls making some noise.
They are really good.
Really
And I
good.
get to see them this week, so
I
that'll be
know.
nice.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll have
Good
firsthand
stuff.
analysis. So that's something that you will not want to miss. For Maria Trivelpiece and Kyle Youmans, this is All American Hoops Edition. We did men's this week. We got women's next week, so you're going to want to tune in. We'll see you then.